Baldur's Gate 3, the defining D&D gaming experience. Tired of writing notes down on paper, thriving off of your active imagination, and rolling probably weighted dice? In comes Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios' challenger for Game of the Year. If it's an engaging story, great characters, and absolute chaos that you want, then you've come to the right place. Now, Dungeons & Dragons is all about a personal adventure, realizing what each person's character would do or want to do in a fantasy space with some of their friends. And honestly, it's strange just how effectively this video game captures that hard-to-find aspect. There's small, intermittent banter, to random choices, to literally just being able to fart as a deception tactic. It feels like there could be any opportunity. There's still somewhat of a guide, but the main experience can be basically anything within the lines of Faerun, along with some general major plot points. Don't let that scare you though, because if it's an engaging story, great characters, and chaos that you want, then you've come to the right place. It's not just the unpredictability of RNG, but it's how Larian Studios utilized luck-based roles to engage players in the world exactly like its source material. It's kind of through this that Larian did Immersion perfectly, ideally, and most importantly, naturally. Dungeons & Dragons has never seemed so real, or virtually real? What makes Baldur's Gate 3 so astonishing to the industry? What is given more detail, or what is possible that you can't do in most video games of today? In simpler terms, why is this game the talk of the tavern? Now I should warn you, this does have a little bit of spoilers up to Act 2. Anything past that is just a small bit of gameplay that is pretty much insignificant or like a very subtle reference. Watching this video, you won't get anything that'll spoil your storyline. There's a reason that this title threatened AAA developers, because it's simply a complete experience. It's super easy to get lost in this world and turn 1 hour into 7. There's fail-safes for everything, a road for everywhere, and most importantly, consequences to every single one of your actions.
No, come on. Oh, never mind. Oh my god.
Whatever you think is going to be lost between acts, such as a random laughing necklace found in Act 1, will become almost irrelevant for most of the game, but if you keep it, it reappears in a completely separate story nearing the end of the game. You make your story, and it all begins with character creation. The character appearance is decently in depth and feels awesome, but it's the rest of the options that really make the game feel so personalized. Every class and race from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is here, with different spell lists, special dice, abilities, and all of that at the player's disposal. Races also include sub-races with different tieflings, drow, elves, dragonborn, etc. Larian lets the player choose the exact way they want to play, including something that seems a little insignificant at first, origins. Whatever you choose obviously gets you the included proficiencies, but it also provides you with dialogue options, certain roleplay moments, and most importantly, the way you get inspiration for rerolls. In my experience, choosing Guildmaster will not only give the player bonuses for helping out fellow forgers, but affect the style of roleplay that will get you the most benefits. It's the tidbits like this that can be subtle, but really transform the dialogue into a specialty meal. But again, that isn't all that will affect how the story is told. What if you screw up a little bit in character's tone? Boom! You start a new battle. Then that affects what this person says later on and how their side quest adapts to what the main cast can do. Seeing a random dude with an oath to a false god? As a paladin, players can either give respect to the NPC for having the oath, or call out their evil. From the perspective of any character, there is so much detail given to each and every small or large interaction that could have an effect down the line. And man, is this ideal world building. Feats are also tremendously ingrained in the way each character plays. There's some from all across the expansive library of Dungeons & Dragons, but it really does provide little small bonuses other than just the ability score improvements that allow even more personalization. It can be anything from giving mobile to a rogue to avoid attacks, or giving Karlach the Barbarian a list of goofy druid spells. It's super personalized and really makes the characters feel directly ingrained in the world, even when you just made it up on the spot. The point is, this world very quickly establishes an immersive player-based system. It's so ingrained in a detailed character creator that it makes it so easy to spend at least your first 2 to 3 hours on creation alone, toning the story and battle mechanics to portray an idealized adventurer. And that is honestly hard to find. There's games like Fallout with a huge character creator, but the only thing that really ends up mattering is what stats you choose. Skyrim is similar in the general scope of the character creator, but it's mostly race that has an effect. Then look at Baldur's Gate. It makes sure that basically everything has a way to be applied in both dialogue, roleplay, and combat. It's genuinely impressive just how they do it, with as big of a barrier as Dungeons & Dragons as a tabletop has been, especially when translating it into a digital medium. This is as close to perfect as possible, at least within the confined settings of Faerun and Baldur's Gate. D&D itself has an array of classes with different perks, spell lists, mechanics, and specialties that are kind of hard to find anywhere else. The only kicker to not just playing the tabletop RPG is that some of the descriptions can be quite confusing and misleading in terms of concentration, DC saves, and other things that may need to be rolled later down the line. The thing it does allow though is the way to craft a completely personal arsenal, expanding even further if you include multiclassing. It's hard to find anything like this in other video games, which have this idea but are still a bit more condensed and guided, if you will. Baldur's Gate 3, they say screw the held back systems and go all out. Combat is definitely going to be the thing that will probably take up most of your time in this game, so being able to truly refine it to the way you want to play is just so special. If you're tired of using one class and want to switch it up, you can craft however you want to play. Unlike a lot of video games, every single enemy can do what the player can, plus about 100 things that they cannot. So it's important to be prepared, flavor your attacks, refine weapons and armor, and doing this all in a way that they can be both universal, unpredictable, and undeniably hilarious. There's a need to get creative with the adaptation to a situation and encounter everything possible with your inventory. And as a barbarian would probably do, definitely use anything in your inventory so long as you can probably throw it, giving players the options to turn invisible, see invisibility, summon a planar guardian, revive the dead, and even shove someone off a cliff is exactly why this game works so well. There's a lot that can be universally used, but later given a buff in situations that need be. It feels so cool to obliterate someone out of nowhere with an attack that they're vulnerable to. That is, if the dice are on your side. The natural rolls make both combat and exploration more interesting and challenging. It is hilariously annoying to build up level 3 smite with tons of buffs and benefits, only to see the words critical miss pop up on your screen. Yet it's the same thing that makes combat more unpredictable and interesting in a way that feels somewhat realistic in a fantasy realm. Also, for the smaller environmental checks that cycle through the normal world interaction, you don't have to pull up an encumbering menu and watch the dice roll. It speeds up your process a bit more and helps save the menu for a more suspenseful moment, balancing the pace of the game quite effectively. Every selection is amazingly personalizable and limited only to the extent of the player. There's so many options, and to think that Eldritch invocations alone require more than one page to show off. The same can be said under fighters, monks, and don't even get me started on the goddamn spellcasting menu. There is seriously a way to make a character, even if it's one of your companions, completely and wholeheartedly yours. Now all of that's good, but what's the one thing that makes this game better, or more in depth than any other? The goddamn world building. Now yes, it is cheating a little bit when you look at Forgotten Realms before it, but the way that Larian Studios translated that into the world is nothing short of astonishing. Let's begin with the introduction. Straight away, you get introduced to the bickering couple, Lae'zel and Shadowheart. The world very quickly establishes the conflict between the Githyanki and the Sharans. It throws the player into a world already full of life with a little taste for the intricacies. The disgusting brain hanging out of someone's skull, the mind flayer actively in combat with a devil, who has an awesome sword by the way, and the eventual escape from Avernus. It's a really nice start that throws you a ton of hints in just a simple prologue sequence. Now, once on the coast of Faerun, there's 4 other characters to discover, with 2 origin characters on the way. Each has their own flavor and storyline that helps establish the world surrounding the cast. an asshole high elf with exceptionally pale skin, a water Davian wizard with a portal problem, and the two from the ship that really help encompass the story that you're about to face. It's subtle mentions that begin to flow into the minds of the audience that are then pulled out of the player's subconscious later on. Now, what's an over 100-hour game's world building if it's dependent on simply just the starting act? This game subtly hints and connects characters, items, events, magic, and anything the player can imagine all the way throughout their time playing. It's honestly genius. Even the subtle banter can pull from a wide array of little things and give someone a sneak peek into the future, if they're paying attention. The main plot is also laced in so naturally. Although yeah, there are a few weak points that may seem forced. As there are with any game, the hooks don't feel out of place. There's still a general structure of progression that every playthrough follows, but it's how and in what order the player gets there that makes the game play so well. The world is already built amazingly with winding paths and deep caverns, but it's the freedom of expression and exploration that make this world stand out. It's entirely possible to miss a section and have that storyline play out differently because the player neglected to look, and also possible for the entire environment and attitude of the next act to just shift dramatically due to this. The world doesn't just build, it's fluid, it adapts, it's wonderful, and if that's not proof of immersion, I don't know what is. It's such that someone mentioning the steel watch in Baldur's Gate makes a lot more sense when you reach Act 3 and actually encounter these steel mechs. Similarly, it's easy to catch a mention of a religion that an NPC follows, that then leads the group on a quest rooting back to their gods upwards of 70 hours later. And no, not just with Shard, the Absolute, or the Dead Trio. It can be as subtle as an ox going moo, or as complicated as a general with an affinity to the occult. Everything is being built up so long as the player catches it. This game is laced with hints that come true, get better, or begin side quests with someone that may not expect them. And come on, doesn't the set design just look beautiful? If a random tiefling just hypes it up, then seeing how much justice is done to a certain location proves to be super gratifying. Almost every little rumor and myth is relevant later down the line, and leaves no stone unturned. Or should I say, no body un-loot-take-all, if you will. It's strange how directly involved the player feels in this game. From the very beginning, they're already contributing to the world by creating a character and making decisions on party members to see developed through the story. Allies made, enemies felled, companions bagged. It's all so fluidly and creatively made that it's just hard to top how engaging the game feels. It's not limited to just one strategy or pathway. The entire game is completely dependent upon the choices to cast, characters, and players. There's nothing more immersive than having all of your choices ripple through time and game. There are always consequences, and by Bahamut does this game make sure the player knows. Both short-term and long-term reactions develop a personality to the player character, allow combat to play smoothly and creatively, and build up the world in such a way where everything knows what's happened already. Personally, I've never seen a game as creative with fluidity as this one. It took all of my expectations well out of the park. If there's a game to sit down and feel separated from reality in, it's the amazing world of Faerun in Baldur's Gate 3. You really get to feel like yourself in this game, but it's fantastical enough that it doesn't make you feel out of place. Pretty simply, this game nails immersion, tenfold. Or better yet, with a natural twist.